Well, welcome back to the ICE Team podcast. I'm your host, Jason Durham, and I'm really excited today to have a good friend of mine with on the show, TJ Erickson. TJ, thank you so much for being with me. I'm excited to talk to you because there's a lot of things that I don't know about you, even though we've known each other for several years. And I think the listeners are going to really enjoy this show and hearing about the dynamic things that you do. So first off, where are we?
Yeah, we are in the wonderful Alyssa Ashley Photography Studio here. I mean, you can just tell this is set up for fishing, as you can see. Just a total fishing atmosphere here. But no, this is my wife's studio here. We just moved here last year, and she got this studio put into our place, and it's been awesome, for her photography stuff, and I get the chance to use it every once in a while for my video stuff and for some of my photo stuff too. So it works out pretty good.
I love you've got the backdrops here. We could have dropped the backdrops. Love these big picture windows that let in the natural light. This is a cool space.
Yeah, it worked out perfect when you're talking about swinging on over. And I was like, we got a pretty good spot for it, I think.
So do you ever just take your fishing gear and do a photo shoot sprawled out on this bed with this? It's like a coyote pelt on here.
Not yet, but now that you mention it, I mean, I don't know. I think there's got to be some sort of boudoir fishing session, huh?
I have a feeling. I just have a feeling there are a few listeners that might take your wife up on that opportunity, right? And be like, I think my spouse would really like this for Christmas, is if I pose on this coyote pelt with some ice fishing gear.
I'm thinking maybe a clam calendar coming on there.
I do a Christmas card every year.
Yeah. That's
really way off base, and this is a good idea. I might.
Well, we'll have to let Liz know. I don't know. I might have to be the photographer though. I don't know if I want her photographing that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, I love seeing all of the things that she had. There's this tiny furry chair that babies sit in.
Right.
I mean,
all these props.
I think this is great. But TJ, you've got a background in media too, in photography, video, all of it.
Yeah.
I want to get into that.
You bet.
First, let's just start out with your background. I mean, simply,
Yep. We're
in Park Rapids right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're filming at your place in the studio, and you're not originally from here.
No, yeah. So I hail from, this is so funny, I tell all my clients when they ask, hey, where are you from? We get a lot of people from the cities or from down south, and I tell them, yeah, I'm from northern Minnesota, and they look at me and they're just like, there's more northern Minnesota than Park Rapids.
Right, we're in northern Minnesota. How much further can we go?
Right, so I hail from the north country of Roseau, 3 hours north of here. So I just tell them, I was like, you keep driving, and basically before you hit Canada, right before there, you just stop and there's Roseau. So yeah, that's where I was kind of born and raised, and pretty much doing everything outdoors, fishing, hunting. I mean, anything you could up there and up there. The main thing I was fishing was Lake of the Woods, which, don't get me wrong, got spoiled, but it's a little different, moving around here. And so growing up, it's funny, I tell people all I really caught up growing up was walleyes. People are like, yeah, so what? I was like, yes, don't get me wrong. I know I was spoiled, but it's kind of fun coming around here, and being able to target different species. So yeah, went there, grew up there. Then I moved to Grand Rapids for a couple years for college, moved to Mayville for a couple years for college. And my wife and I got teaching jobs here in Park Rapids. And actually, funny enough, I had talked to Jonesy. I think, has Jonesy been on before?
He hasn't. We've been in his garage. He'll get on here at some point for sure.
Bet.
And TJ's referencing Jeremy Anderson, who's another local guide, longtime friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've known each other since we were really young kids.
Back. Yep. So yeah, I had been talking with him at a teaching outing and was talking about fishing, and I was like, yep, my plan is to guide. And originally my plan was to teach in Roseau, guide on Lake of the Woods, and here we end up in Park Rapids, and I was like, well, I'd like to guide sometime. And so immediately, he connected me with you, and sure enough, this is before we hadn't even met, I don't think.
No, we hadn't.
And all of a sudden, I get a call from Durham, and I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And first thing he calls, and Durham, you're like, hey, what are you doing this winter? It's like, well, I don't know why. He's like, well, we're going up to Wekusko Falls over Easter. And I was like, he's like, do you want to go? I was like, obviously. How could I say no to that? So we went up there, and I mean, just an absolute blast. And that was before I even started guiding.
Right.
So I didn't know any of you guys, and yeah, that was just truth. That was one of my favorite trips I've ever been on. It was so fun.
I remember that it was my first time meeting you and everybody else meeting you, and I mean, Brett McComas was with Nick Lindner. I mean, we had a big crew up there. Rylander was with, and you were a little more reserved than you are now.
Oh yeah,
I mean, now that you're comfortable with everybody, and
right, I was just a fly on the wall there, and I was like taking it all in, and yeah, it was. I mean, even back then, it was so funny just seeing like how things have progressed, even in the last however many years it's been since there. And I just think of like, truthfully, how little even I knew back then, and still, I'm gonna look back in 5 years and think, man, I knew so little back then.
Right.
That's good. That means you're continuing to grow. But I just go back and I look at that and I'm like, oh my gosh, here these guys are all dialed in on their stuff, and I'm just kind of showing up. But that was just a ton of fun. So yeah, I got to know a few of you guys, and that next summer I think I started guiding. And yeah, with help from you and Jonesy and a few of those other guys, it's just been started guiding in the summers. And then in the midst of that, like you kind of mentioned, I've always been into some of the filming stuff. I mean, when I was going to school in Mayville, I filmed some of my bird hunts because we did a ton of bird hunting over there, And so I filmed some of that. Never really did anything with it. But I was like, I'm going to give this YouTube thing a shot, So I started doing that. And then my wife started that photography business. And so, naturally I was like, oh, let's take some fishing pictures, so I can use for myself, so I can use for some different companies or whatnot. And then started getting some contracts for that. And I was like, I better learn how to do this myself. Like, Liz can't just keep coming with me this whole time. So I started learning like photography, started learning videography. She wasn't a videography side of things. She was all the photo. So it was COVID when everyone was like, what do we do with this time? So I started learning video. I started learning how to edit. I was just like watching YouTube videos like crazy, trying to learn this stuff because there's so much to learn. And so yeah, that's where it all kind of started. And I was like, I'm going to throw some YouTube videos up and just see what happens. If nothing happens, then awesome. I have some sweet videos I can watch myself. And yeah, I started doing that. And it's been a slow and steady journey, but continuing to get more and more growth. And yeah, that's a ton of fun. That it's so much work. It's so much work, but it is so fun. Like even going back and watching. And like I was telling you here earlier, like me and my dad are going on this Columbia River trip coming up this March. And like, even for that fact, like now I can film that trip, and that's gonna be a memory me and my dad will have forever.
Right.
Whatever happens on YouTube, great. If it gets views, if it makes money, cool, whatever. Which a lot of that stuff, is educational. I want to make some money, want to get some views, want to educate, that kind of stuff. But like being able to have that stuff for the memory is just so fun. So yeah, dabbled in a little bit of the photo, video, guiding, been doing that for the last few years, and things just continue to adapt and change. And yeah, more and more opportunities coming. And it's just, I don't know, anything involved in that is just a ton of fun.
I remember when Jeremy called me and he said, hey, I got this guy. He wants to guide. And you have to understand, and I'm sure you've had this happen, since that time, that you have people approach you and go, I was thinking about starting a guide, and
right.
And there's times where you just want to flat out tell the person you don't want to do this, and it's not because of what guiding is or anything like that. That you just simply know they don't have the personality for it. You have to have a certain personality to do it, or to be, involved in the industry at all. You have to have, you got to be outgoing.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And so Jeremy told me, and at first I was like, I don't know, because I'd never met you.
Right.
But then I thought about it and I went, this is one of my absolute best friends. He gets it.
Yep.
Like if he's suggesting this, I know this is legit.
Right.
And so that's when it was like, yeah.
Oh, because I'm sure you've had dozens and dozens of people.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, yeah, this guy wants a guide. It's like,
yeah.
Well, anybody that fishes has at one point a lot of times say, yeah, I want a guide.
Right.
Like that's cool, awesome, and that's great, and a lot of people do, but it's not. You don't always quite understand what goes into it at times either, and
there's a lot
the work and the time and the. But it's
even just
too.
Like building your clientele.
Yeah.
Takes a long time. Oh, yeah. I think people have the misconception that they're going to put up a website and get a business card and their schedule is going to be full all the time.
Yep.
And it's not like that for sure.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
And then there's the people too that go, oh, I want to do this because it's a good tax write-off.
Right.
Oh, well, if you're in your first year, you're probably losing money.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And or the you get it a lot of like, yeah, I just want to fish all the time. You're
right.
Like, well, if you want to fish all the time, don't guide.
Yeah.
Because you're not fishing all the time.
No, not at all. So tell us about your other career, though, teaching.
Oh, yes. I get to be on the other side of the world here over in Park Rapids. And I get the elementary phy ed. So I just have a couple kindergarten classes. So I can just get a brief taste of your life. And I tell this, I'm not kidding you. I have told this to so many people. Kindergarten teachers need to be paid more than everyone else.
I hear that all the time, but it doesn't change anything in our contracts.
That's true. But if it helps you at all, that's how I believe, because I get done with, like, I know I'm going to have a good day if I can get through my 2 kindergarten classes, because don't get me wrong, I love my kindergartners. They're so fun, but man, do they take energy, and the stuff that they don't know. You just think they know things, and it's amazing the things. Don't lick the walls, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Things I never thought I'd have to teach.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, I get the kindergarten through 4th grade, and my day starts with 4th grade, and it jumps immediately to kindergarten. And I always try to prep myself like, okay, you got to lower your expectations. And I get done with 4th grade going to kindergarten. I think I've lowered my expectations enough. And it's like, nope. Here we are again.
Yeah.
But so I started out in the classroom teaching 3rd grade. And I think it was about 3 years. And I switched into Phi Ed. And it's been a good change for me. I just love it. It's hard because you don't get to develop as deep relationships with students. But it's a ton of fun because now I get to see like all the kids in the school. Right. By the time they get in 4th grade, I get to see pretty much all of them. And that's a ton of fun for me. Like, I love being able to have some sort of relationship with all these kids and, bring some energy and that kind of stuff. So that is a blast. It's definitely a different world, being in the gym as opposed to the classroom, but it's been fun. It's been a good change for me for sure.
Well, and you do some coaching too.
Yep. I coach baseball for the last, 7 years, I think. And actually, it's official now, but I will not be coaching baseball this spring.
Oh my.
Yep. It's just with things getting busier and busier, and some opportunities that came about last spring that I couldn't do, because coaching's a commitment, just like teaching, just like anything. Coaching's a commitment, and I know you've been there too, and it's a big commitment. So yeah, I'll actually be done coaching this year, which is going to be a little hard. I told them I'll be around and I'll help out, because I can't just quit cold turkey like that. I've been doing baseball since I was little, but yeah, so teaching was coaching. That'll look a little different this spring. It'll be a little weird. I don't know. It's going to be a little different having some of that time to do some of these other things with filming and photography and some of that kind of stuff. So,
well, I coached for a while. I coached for several years, and I have to tell you, when I got my falls back, that was kind of nice. I mean, like, I had lived and breathed football since I was in 6th grade, and all of a sudden I had that freedom. And so I've never thought about going back to coach.
Yeah, that's, there's still a part of me that's like, I'll get back into it someday. Right. But I do wonder, like, because in the springtime, guiding starts to ramp up, and, just some of the content on YouTube with fishing opener and open water start really ramping up, and some of these photo things, a lot of times companies will need photos for open water as soon as possible. Right. And so, like, not having the time to do that, because as you know from coaching, you're getting to school at 7 a.m. and a lot of times you're getting home at 9 p.m. or 11 if you're on a bus ride. So yeah, it'll look a little different this spring, but I'm looking forward to being able to devote a little more time to some of the content stuff, and it's going to be fun.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you haven't looked up TJ's YouTube, you need to do that. It's right. TJ's Guide Service.
Yep.
And I mean, it's phenomenal. The content that you're putting out is top notch. It's entertaining to watch. It's educational. I mean, I know your membership, your subscribers have exponentially increased over just the last couple of years, and they continue to, and there's good reason for that.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
You are a craftsman at what you do online for sure. But I think TJ kind of tiptoed around the fact that he's an incredible educator too, not just on the water, but in the classroom. I mean, you were Teacher of the Year.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
That was pretty cool, especially like in the Phi Ed world. That's not always a super common thing. When people think educators, a lot of times you're thinking in the classroom. So yeah, that was after I switched to Phi Ed, and yeah, that was, like I said, I know how many incredible teachers we have at our school, and I know you can say the same. And it's like it's such an incredible honor. Like just being considered for that is pretty cool. So yeah, that was very humbled in that respect, because there's so many deserving people in our school for sure. For sure.
I heard about it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the greatest thing ever. So good for you. But let's focus on what this podcast typically focuses on, which is ice fishing.
Right.
And we're not too far off from this.
No.
I mean, last weekend I was out and water temperatures are dropping really, really fast. Some of our ponds are frozen over. Everybody is chomping to get out on the ice right now. And hopefully they can kind of curtail their eagerness a little bit,
Yeah.
and just make sure that everybody's safe. But what are you looking forward to first ice? I know you already have some ideas in your head about what you want to film,
Oh yeah.
but if you're going to put the whole video part of it aside, what are you excited to do just personally?
You know, there's something about being on the ice for that first time, and I don't know what it is. Like I think about the reality of it, and like going from the boat where you can cover so much water and fish so many fish so quickly, and you get out, a lot of times you're walking out right away, and it takes so much longer, and you think, how is that at all appealing? Like it takes so much longer, it's colder, just everything is in general harder. But like drilling that first hole, and it like, man, that just brings back, I don't know if it's nostalgia from like growing up on Lake of the Woods and finally getting out there, but there's something about ice fishing, and I think everybody that's ice fished can agree with this, is like there's something about that, like seeing that water come up after you drill that hole, and seeing your flasher or your live scope or whatever you're using, seeing your bait drop down and seeing a fish come up. It's like, man, that just gets the heart pumping. And so for me, just being out there and covering some water and just doing something different. That's what's one thing I love about Minnesota in general, is like different seasons. Everything has a little bit different season. I could never live in someplace that's 70 and sunny all the time.
Right.
Because simply I just get bored. Like I want something different. So as much as I love being in the boat, there is something like, man, getting that ice on the water and being able to walk out for the first time, especially early ice, if you can get like no snow and you can see right down underneath. Oh, there's just something about that. So what I'm most excited about, honestly, everything. Like I love early ice crappies. It's such a fun bite. And for around our area, once it gets to be midwinter, that walleye bite can get tough.
Oh yeah.
So that early ice walleye bite, as soon as you can get out to some of these, like that's some of the best ice fishing for walleyes that we'll get in this area right away.
Yeah.
So as soon as we can get out to some of those, but yeah, and just some opportunities that you can have, whether it's like little backcountry lakes or it's lakes that just don't have a great access. So like, I'm not gonna bring my boat to there, but you can walk there, bring your pickup or snowmobile or whatever. You can get to some of these lakes. I fish things that are different than what I fish out of the boat. You just have these opportunities, and just such a different way of fishing than say boat or guiding or whatever, and I think that's what I'm most excited about, just getting some of these different experiences, and even like fishing stock trout or, stuff like that. Like it's so fun, just all these different opportunities that you can do. But yeah, that early ice panfish, early ice walleyes, all of it. As soon as you can step foot on that ice, it's just different equipment, different stuff you can use that's sitting in the garage, and pulling that stuff out that always gets some excitement going. And
I was thinking about that whole nostalgia piece of it, and I was thinking about some of the sounds and even like the smells, like opening up a box of waxworms and that sawdusty smell, or a wet glove. You're like, oh. But by the way, this studio smells absolutely amazing. Yeah. Your wife has something plugged in over here that, I walked in and like all of my stress went away.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think that compares to the smell of a wet wool glove.
Oh no, there's especially you forget it folded up in a pocket or something, and you pull it out and it's just crispy and
musty.
I'm a hockey player, coming from Roseau.
Oh yeah.
You have to play hockey, But that same thing, like that smell of sweaty glove. Oh, you can wash your hands 10 times and it's not coming out. But yeah, what comes back to me is growing up on Lake of the Woods, we'd have these just makeshift, because you're traveling quite a ways with snowmobiles, you have these makeshift, like the Mankato style, like houses.
Yeah.
And there's the canvas fabric.
Yes.
That'd be sit all summer.
All
and
musty.
You'd open that up. Yeah. And it's like, it's the best and the worst smell in the world too. Cause like, oh, we're finally here, and you're like, you're sitting in there and it's just awesome. So that's another one of those smells that you say, it's like, oh yeah, that gets the blood pumping right there.
Did you, how old were you or the first memory that you have of going out on Lake of the Woods ice fishing? And was it always Lake of the Woods up there? Did you ever, venture any other direction and chase fish?
We almost primarily fished Lake of the Woods. We,
that's a lot of water.
It is a lot of water. And we did go up to the Northwest Angle. That would be kind of our trips. There's a little lake called Hayes Lake. That's kind of a panfish lake. And it's kind of a fun lake, but that's a little bit further jaunt. But I remember my dad had this old, like, makeshift permanent house out there. And some of the favorite memories that I have is going out there. We'd drive out there, we'd get out to the house and he has a little wood stove and lighten up the wood stove in there. And I remember specifically almost every time we'd go out, I loved frogs as a kid, like amphibian. Like I was just a science kid, part of the reason why I love fishing. And we would always be able to like get a frog or something, and with the minnows. Oh, and I would just play with that while we were sitting in the fish house. And I mean, the nice thing on Lake of the Woods is the fishing's pretty darn good,
Yeah.
especially like when I was growing up, it was, especially for the size was significantly more as far as like you're 17, 18, 19 inches consistently. And it was like as a kid, oh, he can't beat that. And now I look back on it and I'm like, man, did I take that for granted? I just thought that's how things were, And truthfully, did we know a ton of what we were doing? Yeah, a little bit, but it's not nearly like we're dialed in nowadays,
Right.
And it's just like thinking, I just remember days where when I finally got my license, me and a couple buddies, we'd take our pickups out and we just like baja across Lake of the Woods. You get stuck every mile, and we'd go out to some of these reefs and didn't have maps, we didn't have anything, we could have the general idea, and you'd pop down and you'd catch fish. I'm thinking about the stuff that we're targeting now, like you have to be on the exact right spot, this transition line, and it's still tough to catch fish. And I'm thinking like, man, we knew nothing and you could just plop down and catch fish. So yeah, I mean, we stuck to the Warroad side because, coming from Roseau, we'd get there, but we'd fish like the Rocky Point area a lot. And my dad would always go up to the Northwest Angle every year. And once I got to be old enough, then I got to go on that trip. I was always so mad as a kid, like I wanted to go with on that. He's like, but you're driving, 20 some miles on a snowmobile, and it takes a little longer and it's a little more of an adventure. And so yeah, he has stories of going up even before there was really many resorts, going to like the Frank's Bay store and like up on, I think that was on Oak Island, and they wouldn't even have a heater. They'd be like all huddled around a wood stove. Now they have like a full bar and they have, just everything's just so incredible up there on those islands now. But just hearing those stories too, Lake of the Woods, it was such a different world up there. And even now, like the road systems and all of that,
Right.
It's such a crazy lake.
Well, I think it was you that was telling me about just kind of like the apparel that they used to wear and to protect their skin.
I'm not sure which one you're talking about. My dad would always duct tape.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. When they would go on these trips, they don't have face masks, they don't have stuff like that. So they would literally just like put duct tape on their face so they didn't get frostbite. Because the helmets, they're not protected from the wind. They'd be on these like old Polaris Galaxies, like these old sleds, and they just duct tape their face and they take it off when they get up there.
And that's just wild to me.
Yeah. It's pretty cool to see. Or like, they'd literally build like igloo type things, because they didn't have anything for shelters and they just pile up the snow to block the wind and they call her good. Yeah, pretty incredible how things
And resourceful.
progressed. Oh yeah.
Resourceful. For
Absolutely.
Sure. You still have a lot of connections up there. What are you hearing from Lake of the Woods now? I mean, you were talking about how simple it was to go up and catch fish. I've heard some reports that it's not the same as it used to be. I mean, it's still an incredible fishery.
Absolutely.
Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely. Yep.
But things have changed a little bit.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I did a little series on YouTube 2 years ago now, I think. I just went out with my dad and we fished a little bit, and I just talked about that a little bit. And I know even on the JMO podcast, the one time we did kind of a Lake of the Woods focus, and the fact of the matter is it's different. And all lakes go through different cycles.
For sure.
And we can all have our theories on what it is. And if you want to get into a fun debate on Facebook or something, like start throwing stuff around. But bottom line is, from the time where I grew up, and I don't know, a lot of people say this stuff no matter where they fish, but it's definitely significantly changed, and the structure of the fish and even some of the locations that they're going to fish. And, for me personally, I do think some of that has to do with just with pressure. Like I just think of some of the stuff that we fished growing up before roads were out. You could only get there with snowmobile, so we'd be the only ones there and we could catch fish all winter long. And now, there's roads and there's wheelhouses everywhere, and, and not saying at fault to anyone, but just that's the reality of it. And it's just, now you can get out and get a good bite early ice, and then the rest of the winter it's pretty tough. And just thinking, we used to have solid fishing all winter long on some of these spots. So yeah, it's definitely changed. Some of that is just lakes, like we said, go through cycles. Yeah. Some of that is pressure. Some of that is all of the above,
Well, and you can't dispute that there's more people ice fishing now than ever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember as a kid when we would go out ice fishing, we rarely ran into people.
Yeah.
And I mean, our small lakes around here are a little bit different too, and we never really had roads. That was pretty hard to come by. We would do a lot of walking.
Yeah.
But you didn't have crowds of people for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's definitely crowds. Just about any lake you go to, especially if they have a plowed road.
Oh yeah.
There's going to be people out.
And I don't blame people. Like Red Lake, Lake of the Woods, like it's fun fishing out of a wheelhouse. It's
right.
What a way to, if you're going to sit on a Sunday and watch a football game, why not go out and sit and watch a football game? And Not that, truthfully, I don't do it very often because I am way too ADD. Like, if I'm not catching fish, I need to move. I can't but to do it every once in a while, like, yeah, I can see how that could be a super fun thing. And so, like I said, no fault to anyone. And for fishing, like, that's great. More people are getting into fishing. How can you complain about that?
Right.
Truthfully, because that's part of what we do as educators, as guides, as fishermen. Like, we want to share that same joy. Like, we love fishing. We want people to experience that.
Yeah.
And so we kind of get both sides of it sometimes fishing. You're like, there's more people out here. Like, I remember when I used to have the spot to myself. But then you're like, well, that means more people are fishing, which is a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Well, and it does, the whole wheelhouse thing opens up a different aspect too, which is people that want to go and explore.
Yep.
That they go, I can't sit in this wheelhouse any longer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take my pop-up, I'm going to take my flip over, I'm going to take the snowmobile. This can be home base, but I want to go out and explore. I want to get away from the people. I want to go find something that nobody else has touched.
Yeah, and I think a really cool thing with that too is, like, I just think about my family. Like, we have my dad has a fish house. I can't remember what brand it is, but it's nice castle style,
Mm-hmm.
And now we can bring my nephews and nieces, and like, they can just come right out of the pickup, go, and they wouldn't come out if we were going out of portables, but now they get to experience ice fishing. We can go and run around and explore, but they can still come out. So, like, how cool is that? Like, they get an opportunity that they wouldn't have had otherwise. Like, they're not going to come out on a snowmobile and sit in a flip over house, but yet now we can bring young kids out and they pull up a 20-inch walleye. Oh my gosh, how awesome is that? And you can be sitting in the comfort. So yeah, there's definitely some really cool opportunities that come about because of that. And I mean, that happens with anything, any changes in electronics, any changes in styles of fishing. I mean, there's good and bad with everything, obviously, but those opportunities I think are really cool. And being able to see, like I said, when we were able to bring our nieces and nephews out and like they're catching fish and they're having fun, it's just, I don't know, that gets you excited right there. And if that doesn't get you going, I don't know. There's not a lot that will.
Right. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here.
You bet.
We're going to see your opinion on this.
Oh boy.
Do you think that there is a square foot of water on Lake of the Woods that has never had a lure through it?
Yes. The main basin, good question. But I mean, Lake of the Woods is so expansive. And I'm even the main basin, the houses do get pretty congested, and so there's a lot of water. My brother and my dad did this a couple of years ago, literally just as an experiment, because essentially those fish, when it's 25 to 28 feet for miles, yes, they might be around structure, but they can literally be anywhere. People kind of tend to go towards the structure a little bit.
For sure.
But, especially out of the Badette side, it's like, how many miles out are you going? But my dad and brother did this, like, we're just going to literally drive. We're not even going to look at a map. We're just going to drive out as far away and just plop down and fish. And for about 2 weeks, they had awesome fishing.
Really?
Yeah, just in the middle. It was like 25 feet, just a big flat, out in the middle of nowhere. And, then it slowed down and it was tough, but there was a school of fish because those huge schools of fish just roam those flats. You see that a lot in the summer. You see that a lot in the winter. They're just roaming all over the place out there. And it's such a unique fishery, the fact that it tops out in that, 30-ish, it'll get down to like 36 or so in that main basin. But yeah, they can just cruise anywhere out there if they're cruising those flats, eating bugs or whatever they're eating, out there. And so, yeah, I would say yes, for sure. Because it's so expansive, especially when you get up on the Canadian side. I mean, you don't realize how big Lake of the Woods. You think of like the main bowl, you think the Badette, the Warroad, that kind of area. And then you start looking in like the Northwest Angle and you get all the way over like Whitefish Bay. And it's like, that's all the same lake.
Right.
And how? I have no idea. Like, how is that the same lake? But all those islands, it doesn't even look like it on a map. But yeah, it's definitely, there's some uncharted territory out there for sure. And we've seen that a little bit and we've got to explore a little bit, especially up in the Canadian side. And it's a lot still out there yet to be discovered, which is cool.
So if you were going to give some advice to somebody that wants to go up to Lake of the Woods and explore, they want to get away from the crowd, and they're looking at a map, they've done their due diligence of doing a little bit of research, but they want to get to that square foot of water that's never seen a lure before. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, first thing you need to decide is where you want to go out of, like you want to go to the Warroad side, go to the Badette side, or kind of in the middle in that kind of Rocky Point area. That's going to kind of dictate as far as what from there, if you have a snowmobile, you can cover a lot of water. The one thing I will caution is, like, if you go up to the angle to the Canadian side, be very careful because there's current. And there's been people that have lost their lives because they're going in between these islands and there's current. So before you get like too adventurous and like checking stuff out, make sure you check in with some of the resorts, or make sure you check in. They're usually pretty good about letting you know where to go and where not to go. But truthfully, I'm not kidding when I say this, and it's really hard to try this, but like go out there, kind of get an idea of, especially if it's like say February, and I mean houses are everywhere at this point, you know, like just drive. I'm not kidding. My dad and brother have done that 2 or 3 times now, and they've caught fish. And it's just these random, like nobody probably within 2 miles, you know, and just drive and try, you know, fish for a little while. If you're not seeing anything, keep moving. So I would say that on the American side, if you're gonna do that, there's still a lot of water. You know, people, especially on the eastern side towards Badette, going in from there up to like Knighton Bridges or up to Garden Island, like there's a lot of traffic that gets hit there. But west of that, you know, you get to like the Rocky Point area, and there's a lot of those reefs and people fish those a lot. But north of there's a lot of water that people don't touch. And part of that is good because some of that water gets into that 30 to 35 foot range. And that, you know, unfortunately does get fished a lot in Lake of the Woods in the winter, because that's where a lot of fish go.
Right.
And so that's why I do like to steer people towards that west side a little bit more, because you can get into some of those kind of little expansive flats in like 25, 26 feet. And those fish aren't going to suffer those effects of barotrauma, because like one of the things we said is, you know, we talked the lake's changed a little bit. You know, we're seeing a lot more, and whether there's just more of those fish around, but we're seeing a lot more small saugers, small walleyes, 11, 10 inches. And as these get smaller, you know, the size that people will keep continues to get smaller, because, well, if I'm only catching 11 inches, well, I'm going to keep some of these because I want to fish fry.
Right.
You know, so we're seeing a lot more of that. And so when you're getting into 8, 10 inches, you might catch 100 of those in a trip. And if you're not keeping them and you're in 35 feet of water, you know, so just being smart about that too, because I truly think that might have an impact. Enough people doing that and suffering the effects of barotrauma with that. And, you know, Lake of the Woods doesn't get terribly deep, but even in that 35, 36 foot range, it can definitely happen. And we've seen it. And there's been times where we fished and that'll happen. I'm like, we got to move. Like, we can't. We'll see fish come up. And there's those small fish too, especially they're pretty fragile. So yeah, going back to the question, if you can get to the Canadian side, that fish is like a different lake. You know, so much more structure, so much more deep water. That's a ton of fun. I love fishing the Canadian side of anywhere. You know, I do a lot of trips up to like Rainy Lake in the summertime. Tuna fish is kind of like Rainy Lake. You know, there's all that kind of stuff, and you know, it just feels more uncharted. But on the American side, for sure, like there's a lot of those just open flats that people don't fish because they fish, you know, the Zipple Bays, those common areas that have plowed roads. But if you have a snowmobile, like go adventure. There's some random reefs out in some of that deeper, like farther away stuff too, that hold fish. So yeah, don't be afraid to get away from people. I mean, same thing on Red Lake, you know, that's the same thing is sometimes the further you get away from people, the better. And you're going to have some trips where you go out and you try that and it's a bust and it
doesn't work.
And it's hard. It's hard to do that because like, oh, I bet I could have got fish if I went, you know, by that.
Yeah, over by the crowd.
Exactly. But you're going to have far better days, you know, trying to get away from people. But it's easier said than done.
Yeah, I agree. You know, going back to that idea of, you know, current being up there and the safety aspect of it, I experienced that. When I had gone up there a couple of years ago, Rylander and I and McComas, we went up with Linder Media, and there were areas that we got into that, looking on the map, it was like, oh, I think this is going to be a really great area for eel pout. Yep. And then the guy that was with said, oh no, you don't go there. Oh yeah. And because it's so expansive. I mean, there's miles and miles, and you're going, well, how can there be current? Right. Like there would have to be so much water moving.
There's not a river close by, you know, anything like that. But yeah, It's crazy.
So, you know, people that are used to fishing, especially smaller lakes, and feeling more safe. And you really do have to do your homework because you can get in a really sketchy situation.
Oh yeah, there's a couple areas up there that they'll keep a canoe on shore. Oh. Because it's that common, more used to be. I mean, my dad has had stories of where they've seen people go in some of those areas. So yeah, it's definitely a safety factor. It's always good to check in with the resorts. Even when I went up to fishing Lakers on Whitefish Bay there, I was staying at Crawford's, and I told him, I said, hey, you don't have to tell me where to fish. Tell me where to avoid. Right. And he's like, perfect. He's like, that's where they always have maps that they tell people, because I'm glad that they take that seriously, because it can happen quick, you know, and especially when you're on snowmobiles or whatever, you kind of feel like you're invincible sometimes. But it can happen quick. So yeah, that's one of the big things is even on the that side of things over by Whitefish Bay, there's a lot of current over there too. So being able to be cautious of that, and just really do your research and talk to people. There's always people that are going to be willing to kind of point you in the right direction on what to avoid, because that's obviously a very serious thing. So
you had brought up Rainy Lake.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ice fish that at all?
I have not. So Nick.
Wait, never.
No, I've never ice fished Rainy Lake. No.
Get out.
Well, and here's the thing is, I honestly have only started fishing Rainy Lake in the summer these last probably 2 or 3 years. Because, I just fish Lake of the Woods. Why would I go anywhere else? Right. Because truthfully, like, Lake of the Woods is much easier to fish. It's a much easier lake to fish. That's why it draws so many more people. Rainy Lake, yes, it's great. And as far as trophy fish, incredible fishery.
Right.
We were just on this trip. We went over MEA. And I think I told you a little bit about that. We had like 56 walleyes over 24 inches from 24 to like 29 and a half. And it was just an incredible bite. And the fish up there are just so thick. 39-inch pike, 38, like incredible trophy fishery. But it's not as easy to fish. You can't just drive a wheelhouse out and park in the crowds.
Right.
So no, Nick and I have been talking. I know I said we've been trying to get a trip, but we've been talking about trying to get up to Rainy Lake this summer, because that's a lake that I have fallen in love with. Just the quality of fish up there. Like, you might only go catch, like in the summer, may only go catch 5 fish in the morning, but the chance of 4 of those being over 25 inches, pretty good.
Right.
Especially on some of these patterns that you're fishing. But that is not a lake that I fish in the winter that I am incredibly excited to try. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of time fishing it that's going to be not successful, because that happens on any body of water. But knowing the potential that's out there is awesome. It's, again, one of those things where I'm going to have to really do some research to figure out where you can and can't go. Yeah. But that's an incredible fishery that I have really fallen in love with for sure.
I predict that more people are going to start going to Rainy. Mm-hmm. That I think they're going to diverge a little bit from Red and Lake of the Woods and go, you know what, let's go try this out. Mm-hmm. But it's not as convenient. You're right, for
Absolutely.
sure.
Yep.
But you brought up Nick Linder, mm-hmm. and he's helped you out with some of the video stuff and editing and just avoiding some pitfalls and whatever. Mm-hmm. What has that been like, having somebody to give some feedback?
Oh yeah,
bounce ideas off of.
It's been incredible. I mean, even I correlated a lot to like how you have been even for guiding. Like, hey, I have never experienced this before. What do you do if a client does this, or if a client says this, or this is going on? Like,
we've had a lot of those conversations.
Oh yeah, I mean, you cannot predict everything. Mm-hmm. And having somebody that's either been through it or is going through it, or like, hey, I'm kind of kicking it on this. What do you think? So yeah, being able to bounce ideas off of Nick has been awesome, because it's a very small population of people that are doing some of that stuff, some of the video stuff, but not only on YouTube, but just for like companies or whatever. So just in anything, like with guiding, with anything fishing purposes, like having somebody to help mentor or even like bounce ideas off of, even if it's not a mentoring relationship, somebody that's like, hey, maybe you really love like trying to target big pike, and you're like, hey, I really want to target big pike through the ice this winter. And somebody else, hey, I like to target big pike. Awesome. Even if it's not a mentoring relationship, like, hey, let's just go out, or let's compare notes every time. Us as guides, we're all the time doing that. Hey, has anybody been out here lately? Like, because fishing's hard. Fishing can be hard, you know? It can be. Sometimes it's like, oh, anybody can do this. And there's days where you're like, wow. Right. So being able to have people that you can like bounce ideas, it just expedites learning so much. And not only that, but it makes it so much more enjoyable to share that with. I mean, so much of fishing, so much of the fun of it is relational,
Yeah.
And you see that all the time with guiding. I mean, I know that's one of the reasons why you're such an incredible guide. Yes, you catch fish, absolutely. But the fact that you can connect with these clients and build that relationship with them, I mean, how many of those clients have just become so close to you?
Oh my gosh.
And that's so much of fishing. So being able to find someone that you can have that relationship with and like enjoy those memories and like build and be excited for people. And that's one thing I've appreciated too, is both you and Nick and all these guys, is there's so much negativity. Out there. And I know our group of guys that we have in the Park Rapids area, we've said so many times of like, so much more fun to guide here. Like,
we're so blessed.
You hear some stories of guys that it's like cutthroat, and like, and I attribute that a lot to you, and even Jeremy, like you guys were the two main guides around here for a long time, and being able to take some of us younger guys and like, hey, yeah, there's clients to go around, we'll help you out, like how easy was it? Could it have been it? No, this is our area.
Right.
You don't come here.
Scrap.
And so, but even Nick, like, when we started connecting, we actually first met on that trip up to Wekusko Falls. Right. And we kind of reconnected once I started doing more of the YouTube stuff. But how easy it is to be like, no, this is my thing. I want to learn. But I just remember even up at Wekusko Falls, he was such a good dude of like, here I am, this like guy that just kind of tagged along. And here we ended up sitting around the fire one night just chatting, and he was Nick Linder. He could have not given me the time of day or whatever, and it's like he was so kind. I think I've always appreciated that. I'm always drawn to those type of people that like just genuine, and willing to help people out, because there's so much negativity in the industry. There's so much positivity in the industry, don't get me wrong, but a lot of times you see the negativity because that's what gets going on Facebook or in these forums or whatever it is. Like, people love to hate,
Yeah.
And I love that there's so much more media, whether it's on YouTube or whatever it is, through companies like promoting that like positive fishing experience. Like, we're all just here to catch fish, man. Like,
yeah,
relax. Relax.
See, this is one of the main reasons why I knew that TJ would fit so well here, because you just get it.
Mm-hmm.
You get it that's the whole idea. Is it's positivity. Like, why do you gotta be behind a screen and go, well, that walleye looks like it's only 25 inches,
right,
not 26. Who cares?
Yeah. And that's what I think that's so funny about the YouTube side of things, as things continue to grow. There's just the things that people will comment on is so funny. And, I always tell people, like, hey, like if I'm going to film with them or wherever, like, hey, just be ready. You never know what people are going to say. I woke up the other day with a comment, and somebody was like, yeah, that Mike surely needs to learn how to catch fish. And so I sent that screenshot to him. I was like, I told you, no one's ever safe. But it's just like, really? But yeah, I've always appreciated that from you guys, and even from Nick, and from so many people in the fishing industry now, is like, and I'm not going to lie, like, being an athlete, being competitive, like, that's a competitive nature. It's easy to fall into that. Like, oh no, this is my spot. Oh no, I found these fish. Like, you can't catch these fish. And that's one thing that, I've really learned from you too, is like, there's enough fish in the lake.
Oh, for sure.
We all just want to, and it's sometimes hard when you have paying clients and it's stress, and that kind of thing. And somebody comes in, but it's like, in the grand scheme of things, there's enough fish in this lake. We just want people to have a good time and enjoy fishing. Yeah. And so that's one thing I've really drawn from you guys. And just, man, fishing's supposed to be fun.
I always think about, clients ask me a lot, do you have people that follow you around, whether that's in the boat or on the ice or whatever? And I always tell them, if they do, I don't notice. But if I did notice, I would welcome them to come and fish with us. Mm-hmm. Fish right next to us. And if they catch them and we don't, mm-hmm, congratulations, because you figured it out and I didn't.
Yep.
Great job. And I would be the first to go over there and go, what are you doing that's different? Mm-hmm. We all learn from each other for sure. And that's where that whole educational part of it, you can be a teacher, but you're always going to be a student.
Oh yeah.
Always.
As soon as you think you have something figured out, I don't remember if it was in a video or something, or a podcast that we were doing, it's so true. As soon as you think, because there's some guys out there that for sure, they think they have it all figured out.
Yeah.
And it comes through, pretty blatantly. But as soon as you start, that just limits what you can learn and the fish that you can catch. And because, man, every day I'm out, I learn something. And you probably had this 100 times too. Like, I'll have clients that'll be in the boat with me, and hey, I tried this, and me thinking, oh, I'm the guy, like, what do you think you're talking about? Like, you don't know this. But it's like taking that step back of like, no, like, everybody's got, you try it and it's like, oh yeah, that works. Or like you're telling someone to do something, you're like, no, you got to do it like this, try it like this. And all of a sudden they start catching fish and you're like, never mind. You just do whatever you're doing, man. It's working. And I'm going to take some notes here. So not thinking that you're above anyone else, and like being able to learn from everyone is huge, because everybody's got different experiences and things to learn.
I like what you were talking about in terms of like, being a mentor and having people to share the experience with. But what I would encourage, anybody that fishes, ice fishes, to form kind of your core group of people that you can trust, that you can share information with, mm-hmm, and they can share information with you, that that, they're not going to post it on social media. Here's the spot, here's the coordinates, that you can do that, because it flattens the learning curve
for sure
so quickly. I just think about when I go out and I'm looking for fish. If I'm by myself, I'm drilling holes, I'm running the electronics, I'm doing all that all on my own. If I have 3, 4, 5 guys with, mm-hmm, I should say anglers with, because it's not just guys that come with, that if I have 5 anglers with me, I can find fish so much faster.
Oh, yeah. And everybody has more fun.
Exactly.
And not only that, but like, the conversations and the memories. Or,
Yeah.
hey, remember that time we drilled 400 holes and we caught 0 fish?
Oh my gosh.
Like, those are memories there too.
Oh, boy.
You know, because we've all can say we've had plenty of those experiences. You're like, hey, let's go try this lake. There's a little backwoods lake. Like, and you're like hiking into it or whatever. You get back there and it's like 3 feet deep.
Right.
And you're like, well, this one didn't work out. But those are all memories too, you know, and being able to share those with groups of guys. And again, I just can't say enough about how much I've enjoyed, like, even just our group of guides that we have.
Yes.
We hardly ever get together, but like even
when
once
we do, though,
yeah, it's so fun.
Oh.
It's so fun. And I know we talked about that even a few years back, and that's why it was kind of fun to be able to do this podcast. It's like, man, we could just get everyone together and just talk fishing like once a month. That'd be awesome. And it's pretty much impossible to do with everyone's schedules, but how fun is that to be able to just sit and shoot the breeze about fishing or life or anything like that. So yeah, build memories through fishing. I mean, that's 90% of my friends.
Yeah.
It's people that I met through fishing or hunting or whatever. You just build some different connections with people, you know.
You were talking about the whole, like, finding somebody, if you're interested in pike, finding somebody that likes to fish pike. And that is one of the positive attributes of social media.
100%.
That you can find people that live relatively close by or not.
Yep.
If you want to talk to somebody from Europe, or,
Yep.
you know, and get ideas about fishing a certain species or whatever. Well, Rylander and I, we met on Facebook.
Absolutely.
That is how our whole relationship started. I know the whole courting process began on social media. But yeah, use it to your advantage. You know, you can take that tool and do a lot of really good things in the world with it.
Yeah.
But try to avoid that whole
Yeah.
negative Nelly.
Well, and that's the thing too. And you're gonna run across people of hey, you know, I love this. Like, hey, we should get together. And you're gonna run across some people that are like, ooh, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
But it's easy to avoid those people, you know. And it's
Did they all talk like that?
Absolutely.
You can't do that.
Just like your voice changer that you
Oh
have.
yeah, we're not gonna get into that again. Might not get out of it.
Right.
So back to ice fishing though, as we get into this first part of the season, let's say somebody's going to go out on Lake of the Woods. We're just going to pinpoint at Lake of the Woods, and they want to catch some walleyes early part of the season. What is your go-to setup? What are you bringing for rods? Where are you going out of?
Yep.
What are your GPS coordinates?
Absolutely. Hold on, let me get those out here. Yeah.
You just carry them in a little notebook in your pocket.
Exactly.
All of the coordinates. Okay.
Absolutely.
Hand them out like business cards.
Well, I mean, for a fee. No, we a little shameless plug here, but also very. It's so hard to give so much information on a podcast.
Right.
But I did have that series on Lake of the Woods, and there's a video called Lake of the Woods 101. And I just literally detail, okay, this is what the west side, this is what the middle, this is, you know, I kind of break it down into zones, like this is kind of what you're looking for. So that's going to give way more information than I could possibly even give here, and like gives the visuals that go along with it. So I will say that, like I said, a little shameless plug there, but also truthfully, it's packed full of information.
I was thinking of that as we started talking about this, and it's a great video, fantastic video. But I thought for the podcast, because people are going to be in their vehicles,
you bet,
they're going to be driving, hopefully not looking at those visuals.
Right.
A lot of people that listen to this podcast may be on the way to Lake of the Woods when they hear it.
Absolutely.
So let's say that they're coming from Iowa, southern Minnesota, Wisconsin, wherever, and they're halfway there. You're going to give them some information, because when they stop at the gas station / bait shop, there might be some things they need to pick up.
Yeah. So for me, you know, one of the things that's been very interesting this is just a little side note, since I moved here. So like growing up in Roseau, whenever we'd go get minnows, everything was just called chubs. You know, fatheads is what we call them around here. So I remember the first time I pull into the bait store in Park Rapids, I was like, you got any chubs? And they're like, creek chubs? Or like, what are you looking for? I was like, no, like chubs, you know, like the cheap minnows, you know, and fatheads. So that was like, so there's not really a whole lot other than just chubs up there, fatheads, you know? And so really that's something that's nice about Lake of the Woods is like, you're not gonna have to buy big fancy minnows. So,
the Lamborghini minnows.
Right. But it's really nice. So when I go up, you kind of have to break down on where you're going out of first. You know, if you're going out of the west side, going out of War Road, you know, there's a public free landing right out of War Road, which is awesome. There's not typically plowed roads out there. There is more out of spring steel, but you can get snowmobiles out of. So if you're going out of that area, one of the things that I will say is like if you can have any sort of connection, even if it's going to the bait store, check it in, because depth is a huge thing on Lake of the Woods. if you're talking like vedette side especially, because it just goes from, shallower all the way up to 30 some feet. And it's just these big, just slow, gradual drops. And you'll find that a lot of like, they'll be in a certain depth as they progress. Typically it starts shallower and works deeper towards the later in the winter. But find that kind of, if you can talk to people a little bit, even or stop into the bait stores. But those flats are key. If you can get in, a lot of times in that 20 to, I know it's a wide range, but that 20 to 30 foot range is a lot of times what you're looking for early ice. But don't shy away from structure. I'm a structure fisherman. Right. I just love, part of it is like, it makes me feel like I'm doing something, like you can go and fish flats. Oh, anybody could do that. Just go drive the house. But like, if I oh no, I was on this little point or this inside turn, like that's what did it,
That gives you just confirmation that like the fish were there because of that.
That guy over 20 feet over there, he probably caught 0 fish. I caught them all, Yeah. But so truthfully, don't shy away from structure. There's a ton of structure. Most of the structure, I will say, is not most, but a lot of the structure is around that kind of Arneson's Rocky Point area, and there's tons of structure, those reefs, there's lots of good stuff there, and there's lots of fish around there. So sometimes it will be on the reefs, sometimes it'll be off in the flat. So if you like to fish a variety of things, kind of head towards that Rocky Point area. If you want to, I want a chance to go up on structure, maybe I want to go up on structure early and late and go up to the flats midday. Or if I just want to pull my wheelhouse out and set it down, I would probably lean towards going towards like Vedette. And then you just drive out, you can find the right depth. You might fish it for a day. It's like, I need to try deeper or shallower. One of the things that's kind of a fun pattern is if you are a little bit mobile, going up shallow early and late, early ice late house, you can catch some bigger walleyes doing that. And then you can go a little bit deeper midday. And a lot of the resorts will do that kind of thing. They'll have day houses, they'll move them up, either deeper for the day and shallower for the evening, that kind of thing. But that's kind of a fun pattern. But the west side has a little bit of everything. It has some of those reefs, like a 5 mile reef or some of those reefs, but it also has some of those flats. And so they can be, those are kind of your two main things. You're fishing rocky reefs, you're fishing that structure, or you're fishing kind of these mid-range flats. And just, like I said, find the right depth. There's a lot of people that have plowed roads to a lot of places now. So like if you're coming up and you're bringing a wheelhouse, the options are endless right now. Right. It's truthfully, it's great. And typically, like many things, the earlier ice you can get out there, the better. And the other thing I will say on that too is some of these people will plow these roads for free, not for free, but they can't charge. They can put a box there, but just drop in some money. Like that's a lot of work. I don't think people realize how much work that is, and they think, well, I'm not paying you, I'll go around or whatever. And, even growing up, I thought that like, they just come in and plow a road, but now there's times where I'm like, this is so worth it. $5, $10, whatever it is.
Oh my gosh.
So if you're bringing a wheelhouse up, there's so many roads, Swift Ditch has a road, Arneson, more so on the Dale side of things. By that, they have a road. Long Point has a good road. We fish out of Long Point a lot. Spring Steel has a road. Zipple Bay has a road. Morris Point has a road. Over by Vedette, they have roads. So there's so many opportunities for wheelhouses. And the other thing is too, you can park a lot of those places and just bring your snowmobiles and run up. So I will suggest doing that. But honestly, if you can have, as far as for gear now, if you're going with snowmobile, always bring extra stuff because Lake of the Woods is a beast.
It eats stuff.
Oh yeah. We had these makeshift, sleds and stuff growing up because they didn't have the sleds like they have now. Right. And oh my gosh, it was like every mile we'd stop and we'd have to ratchet strap things and stuff was flying off. So bring extra stuff, heaters, bring extra everything, because if you're planning on going for a distance on snowmobiles, it's going to get bounced around and it's going to get wrecked. So bring extra stuff. But honestly, some of my favorite, just like anything, like if you have a spoon, like I could fish like those with a spoon all winter long, and any spoon. There's some times where yes, like a certain color or specific style of spoon is working, but a spoon. And then honestly, one of the things that I've really liked as far as presentation goes is that paired with like just a small like panfish, essentially tungsten jig. Mm-hmm. That has been a 1-2 punch. That has been awesome up there. And, typically with it being a little more stained, a lot of times those brighter colors are a little better. And any bit of glow we find, anytime you can get glow out there is good. There's not a significant night bite out there, right. So be prepared for that as well. But you're looking at, if you can get that good midday bite, you don't get that a lot of places, where you can catch fish just consistently throughout the day. But that's a lot of what I will use. You'll have a good, 30, I like a 30 or so inch rod, something medium light, medium heavy, kind of depending on the area that you're fishing. Some areas will target a little bit bigger fish. I find bigger fish tend to be a little more on structure, and you'll see a little bit more of those eater size fish or more numbers off of structure. So, being prepared for that as well, but having like some sort of snare rod or, that for a dead stick, I don't think that's any uncommon knowledge, but a dead stick rod paired with a jigging rod out there is just prime. And I know we'll catch them on rattle baits and stuff like that at times. Those are more like trigger them in, drop down a spoon, or have your
1-2 punch.
Yeah, because it's not like a Lake Winnipeg where they just want to smack those those big rattle baits.
That's just such a different bite up there.
For sure.
So you were talking about glow in the dark baits, and I think so many people forget. They forget that the entire lake is encompassed with ice and snow, and certain bodies of water, dirtier water. That glow in the dark is not glow in the dark.
Right.
It's luminescent for every period of time that you're out. That you should have those chargers with to be able to charge them up, and noon. Charge up your bait for sure, because that's going to help trigger bites.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, you especially on Lake of the Woods being safe, like if you ever dropped a camera down there's some years where you can actually see things a little bit, but for the most part, it's very hard to see with a camera, and that's where anything to give these walleyes a little help, is huge. Like that little glow or a little rattle, some little rattle on a spoon, or any little vibration like that can be key on a body of water like Lake of the Woods for sure. But then there's those days where they just need it sitting, and they just need it sitting almost on bottom, and they're just smelling it and just eventually picking it right up. But yeah, that's having some sort of glow or rattle or vibration can be key on Lake of the Woods for sure.
What about then when you come back here to your second home, to the Park Rapids area that's got tons of clear lakes? How are you changing your approach for those smaller natural bodies of water that are just gin clear?
Yeah, I pretty much take everything that I know about Lake of the Woods and how I fish there and just throw it out the window. Not actually, but pretty dang close.
There's a lot of things that apply up there that do not here.
Oh, for sure. One of my favorite things to do early ice for walleyes is finding shallow flats with weeds. I'm not doing that on Lake of the Woods. Right. I'm not going to these shallow flats and finding sparse cabbage and like, okay, there's going to be fish up in here. No chance I'm doing that.
Right.
Or, lightening up some of that line. Like half the time on Lake of the Woods, you can use a braided line tied directly because they're just not as spooky where you're in these Park Rapids areas, these crystal clear water. And sometimes you feel like you could have just a minnow down there with no hook on it and you're not going to get bit, because they're so picky. But yeah, for sure. So like when I'm looking here, I'm looking at a few different things. Your typical clear water, a lot of times deep water for a lot of like northern Minnesota, or even, the majority of Minnesota, those typical clear water lakes. I look for shallow weedy flats. That's for walleye specifically now. Shallow weedy flats are like one of my favorites. But not every lake fishes that way. A lot of lakes have those, but they don't always, fish aren't always there. But one of the things that I've really been doing more of lately is like getting out in the boat right now and not even looking for fish necessarily. No. Hard bottom. I love fishing hard bottom, or if there's a hard bottom, soft bottom transition, and you start to notice those things on a map, like, oh, there's this hard bottom, soft bottom transition. And it's like a little, like not even a point, but just a little change in the contour or a little circle on the contour. And, oh, that's something, the mapping system picked something up. And so like finding some of those, and then you try them out, and sometimes you'll try them out and it'll be a bust. But then sometimes you'll try them out. There's a couple spots we tried out last year where it was like a hard bottom little thing that I saw in the late fall like this. And I went out there and I was like, this was awesome. Yeah. Some awesome fishing, some good fish. So those are two good ones. But there's the cool thing about this winter bite is those fish that like early ice, those fish move along those break lines so much. Just that initial break line. And it's so easy to like walk out. That's what I love about that bite. And it's such a convenient bite because sometimes you're literally walking out 50 feet. Yeah. And like on a lot of our lakes, it's a pretty steep break. Yeah. So you can just fish 17, 18 feet of water, kind of maybe where the weed edge was, or like, and these fish, you're not going to maybe catch fish all night long or all evening, but they're going to cruise through it there at some point. You're going to get some action, and they just cruise those break lines. So, those shallow weedy flats, hard bottom, soft bottom transitions, but that, just that initial break line is huge. That can be
primary
key.
Breaks or early ice. Yeah.
And it's easy.
It's easy
because
unless your access point is one of those that's on a really huge shallow flat, and you're like, I have to walk out 300 yards, and you realize how out of shape you are, And you had that first snow that's really slushy and it freezes to the bottom of your sled.
And you're trying to pull a house and it's just like, yeah, you're ready to just lay down and cry. Yeah.
I don't know if I ever told you about Christmas a couple years ago where on Christmas Day I decided I didn't have any obligations. Or it was Christmas Eve. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to go set up the hub. I'm going to camp. I'm going to fish.
I remember I saw some pictures, I think. We talked a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I started walking and I have everything. I have all this gear in the sled. And, I want to get out to this hump and everything. And I only got like halfway out there and I was sucking wind so bad that I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to set up here.
Right.
This is where I'm going to fish. And it was not my ideal spot.
Oh, didn't you catch a stud?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. So it really made it worth it.
That.
And I did it the next year too. It's kind of like my Christmas Eve fish is back. But and you know what? I'll take it. I'll take it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But you can put in a lot of work in that early part of the season, walking out. And
when
we talk about packing light, boy, there's a lot of truth to that.
Oh man, and it's getting harder and harder. So there was 2 years ago I was going to film an early ice video. There's a lake that I wanted to try that was kind of like a backcountry lake. You just hike to it, you can't get it there.
You just hike to it.
And so it's like, oh yeah, and I was like, I was going to film a video. So anytime you're filming a video, you have all sorts of other junk, And so I'm like, I'm not kidding you. I got like halfway there and I texted Alyssa, my wife, and I was like, hey, here's a pin of where I'm at. Like, if you don't hear from me, like I had a heart attack or like I passed out because I was dogging it. Because, at that point, there was actually not a lot of snow. So then my sled was pulling through these trees and I'm like, oh, man. But, in the summertime, I'm not going to go back there because I don't have a boat. I'm not going to pull a boat back there, but it's like some of those cool opportunities. But yeah, I was realizing how out of shape I am.
Well, this time of year is the worst. At least for me, it's the worst because I guided all summer. I've been in the boat a ton. And I tell you what, I have an Apple Watch. There was a day this summer where I got 10,000 steps in the boat. I mean, that's how much I'm moving.
Were you working a jigging rap?
No, I wasn't even fishing. Yeah. I was taking care of people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of kids that day.
Oh, yeah.
And then we get to this point where daylight saving. And all I want to do is eat.
Oh,
I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
like the darkness sets in and all I want to do is just grind carbs as fast as I can.
Well, and that's the dangerous thing. We should put a cautionary tale on this. That's the danger about ice fishing right there. It's so easy to just sit and eat.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
You can't pack really good snacks ice fishing unless you plan on eating all of them.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you wouldn't want that extra weight walking back.
No, right? Oh yeah. If there's any bit of lull in the action, oh yeah, I'm gonna be down in some gummy worms or something.
Is that your snack of choice to bring on the ice?
Gummy worms are hard to beat. I'm a sweets junkie.
Really?
Oh yeah, I have a big sweet tooth. Anything with sugar, I'm just a sweet tooth for sure. Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad.
I think the hard thing though is I'm a big soda guy. Give me a Coke Zero and oh yeah. But you set it down on the ice and it freezes. It freezes so fast.
Yeah.
And now, it'll be interesting how that new law reads, no garbage on the ice. Are you going to be able to have your can of pop right next to you? If you set it down.
Go get a flag.
Yeah. I mean.
Yeah. I don't mind that though. You see.
I'm glad.
Oh, for sure. That's been, as good as ice fishermen are about a lot of things, you've seen it all the time. I've seen it all the time. It's like there's a lot of junk left over.
Yeah.
And it's too bad. So yeah, I'm glad they're kind of cracking down on that.
This will be positive for the fish, for the fisheries.
Yep.
But I'm sure there are going to be some people that are upset about it too.
Yep.
But with any law, you have to know the laws.
Yeah. Yep.
That's with all the fishing. So
absolutely.
What trip are you looking forward to most this winter?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. I would say ice fishing wise, I am early January. We're heading up to Sioux Narrows lake trout fishing. And there's nothing better for me on the ice than fishing lake trout. Oh, that just gets me going, especially now with live scope and seeing those things chase on the live scope. Oh, that one's a huge one. Every February we go up to the Northwest Angle, Lake of the Woods. That's a super fun trip. And then I talked with you a little bit about it in March, not an ice fishing trip.
Right.
In March, my dad and I are going to the Columbia River, fish for some giant walleyes. So I've got a busy winter, which is going to be fun. At least every month I have some sort of trip planned, which is what I try to do. And like I said, Nick and I might try to plan a trip up to Rainy Lake. But yeah, if I could fish lake trout pretty much all winter long and I'd be okay.
Really?
Oh, I love lake trout. They're so fun. And
how old were you when you caught your first lake trout? Did you start doing that when you were younger?
No, not at all. When I was younger, we did some open water. A friend of ours, my parents has a cabin up by Nestor Falls. So we did a little bit when I was younger. When I caught my biggest pike actually off a dock, 44.5 inches.
Whoa.
That was awesome. Right out of, I can't remember the resort, Vic and Dots there. But yeah, lake trout, honestly, it wasn't, we went up, we were staying at the Northwest Angle. And I was like, Dad, I want to fish lake trout so bad. We did it. I had done it a little bit before Wekusko Falls. And then we went up to Wekusko Falls. It was everything. Burbot, and we were just catching Lakers mixed in. It was incredible. Spoiled us for sure.
That is a magical place.
Yeah. But I've really gotten into it probably the last 5 years. I did it a little bit here and there. But when we went up to the Angle, it was like, hey, let's go up to Ptarmigan Bay. Because that's an area on Lake of the Woods you can catch them. And it was like a 2-hour snowmobile ride from the Angle. And I'm like, we had to bring extra gas. And I was like, okay, this wasn't working. We caught some Lakers, but there's those first few that you see just target it and they just rip line. There's something about lake trout through the ice and how they fight. And, if you're used to catching 14, 15-inch walleyes, and I was like, okay, about lake trout, and it just spools you. My dad was sleeping on the ice, though, one day. We went out lake trout fishing, and he had never been, I don't think, through the ice at that point, and guy had just a wicked headache, and he's sleeping, and his bait's just sitting basically on bottom, and this thing just almost rips it out of his hand, and it was just so fun. But yeah, they're a fun fish to target through the ice. So yeah, eventually, someday I'd like to get to like Fort Peck, do something like that.
Yeah.
That one's always on the list, but it's pretty tough to beat. Like, for our neck of the woods, going up to Sioux Narrows on Whitefish Bay and Lake of the Woods area, that's a pretty tough place to beat, and we did Gunflint, the Gunflint Trail 1 year during COVID, and that's got some good lake trout. You're not gonna get as much size up there, but yeah, they're a fun fish, that's for sure.
Do you eat them?
Lake trout? Yes. So Bob, our buddy Bob Bateman, he used to do some guiding in the Park Rapids area. Last one we went up to, I can't remember if it was the Gunflint or whatnot, but I sent some with him because he's like, hey, send me some, I'm gonna smoke it up, and he smoked it up, and oh my goodness. It's like so full disclosure, I am not a cook. I'm bad. I'm really bad. I would love to start doing that, but I don't have enough forethought to like smoke stuff, but I love eating smoked anything.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. So he smoked up some lake trout for us, and it was amazing.
Smoked gummy worms. That'll be your new snack.
Hey, that sounds like a pike killer right there.
Hey, I'll tell you what, there's a guy in Monaga that smokes cashews.
Really?
And they're unbelievable.
I believe that.
They're unbelievable.
I believe that.
So this might be your new thing, smoked gummy worms. I don't know.
I don't know. I wouldn't put it past myself.
I am not a lake trout eater.
Mm-hmm.
I don't enjoy lake trout, but a lot of people do.
Yep. Smoked for sure.
Yeah.
Smoked for sure. We did a little bit of rainbow trout on a grill, and that was pretty good. But it's a little more bony, a little more stuff to pick through. And I'm pretty picky when it comes to bones in my fish. Yeah. So it's not my favorite thing as far as that goes, but it's got good flavor. It's just different,
I always tell my guide clients after I clean fish for them, if you find a bone in the fillets, it's $1 off the next trip. And they go, oh, so we only need to find hundreds of them. And I go, oh, no, it doesn't matter how many you find. It's still just $1.
Just $1, yeah. It's not per bone.
No.
No.
No, never that. Well, TJ, we've talked about a lot. Ice fishing, life. Mm-hmm. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Anything else you want to share with the listeners before we go? Some sage words of wisdom for this upcoming ice season.
Oh, sage words of wisdom for the upcoming ice season. We talked a little bit about it, but like early ice, man, just be safe. It's so easy. I mean, I'm as eager as anyone, and I will go out, on ice that other people might not go out on at times, but I'm very strategic about it. Whether you're having picks, either a float suit or a life jacket, you're having a buddy and a 50-foot rope, or, all these precautions that you're taking. Just be smart. It's so easy to get so over anxious or over eager and to make some dumb choices, because truthfully, especially like around here, you go out and you catch 5 walleyes on a good day, is that really worth your life?
Right.
You know, like as excited as we all are, and as fun as it is, like just be smart about that. So that would be one definite piece of sage wisdom, I guess I would say. And it's been fun to see more people advocating for that. Companies, people that make YouTube videos, all that kind of stuff, advocating for that, because it is a huge thing, and it's always tough to hear because every year, you know, there's stuff that happens and it just breaks your heart, you know, seeing someone in the ice fishing family, you know, lose a life or whatever. So for sure, but yeah, it's that's the one thing I can leave people with right there.
And, you know, the whole focus of this Ice Team podcast is anybody who loves ice fishing, you are a part of this team. And then it just encompasses everybody that ice fishes. And when you talk about losing somebody from the family, that's anybody.
Whether you know them or not.
Anybody, whether you know them or not. That's absolutely right. So, yeah, we encourage everybody to be safe. Now, I know that there are people that are taking in this podcast as they're driving to the lake right now. You know, we're towards the beginning of the ice season, but it might be a month later that somebody's hearing this podcast. And they want to check out the rest of your stuff.
You bet.
What's your website, YouTube, and Alyssa's information?
Oh, yeah. We got to give credit to the studio here.
Yeah.
No, for a lot of it, you know, a lot of times I get a lot of questions if I've done a podcast or whatnot. People will reach out, hey, I want to hear more about that. And I love that. Like, we talk about, like, you can meet so many people through social media, and it's awesome. The conversation that I've had just from, like, starting this YouTube thing and people reaching out to me on Instagram. Instagram's probably the best one. Facebook, for whatever reason, I have a tough time seeing messages sometimes, and I don't always see them. But Instagram, you know, if you have any questions or want more information, or like, hey, this was really cool, tell me more about it, reach out on there. That's just all TJ's Guide Service. YouTube, TJ's Guide Service. If you want to see any of the videos, I do a lot of like educational type stuff, like whether it's walleye. I do a lot of walleye focus, but I do some panfish, do some other stuff as well. But tons of educational, tons of talking about where to look on the map and what to look for in electronics. I'm an electronics junkie. I love my live imaging, you know, all that kind of stuff. So if you do have any questions, want to check stuff out, check that out. You know, if you're looking for a wonderful studio session here, you can check out Alyssa Ashley Photography. I think that's her website too, alyssaashleyphotography.com.
You think it is?
I know.
You're supposed to know.
Yes, it is alyssaashleyphotography.com. I'm 99% sure.
She's not home right now.
Well, and here's the thing. I know she's not going to listen, so I'm safe.
She might.
She hears me talking about fishing enough. She knows anytime my phone rings, it's like, well, there's another half hour to an hour conversation about fishing. And she's so good about it. She's so patient with me. She's awesome. But yes, if you're looking for a little photo session, she truly does amazing work, and her business is just blown up. I mean, she can't hardly keep up right now.
And weddings, graduation pictures, and of course my Christmas card that I'm going to wear this, you know, coyote poncho.
If you want that Christmas card from Durham, make sure you reach out and we'll get that to you.
Well, TJ, thanks so much for being with me. I feel like I could just talk to you for hours and hours and hours, and I always appreciate any time I get to sit and chat with you.
Yeah, we don't get to do it enough. I mean, little bits here and there in the summertime, and if we're seen at boat landings or whatnot, and we always talk about that, like, we just got to get together and catch up. So when you mentioned doing a podcast, I was excited to be able to finally like sit down and talk fishing again. 11 p.m.
phone calls. Yeah, that's where we talk the most.
Oh yeah, because there's no time during the day, and that's especially in the summer. It gets dark at 10 o'clock. But yeah, no, like I said, I appreciate you having me on, and even just appreciate just all that you've done for me, but even all of our guys or people in the fishing industry, like. Just appreciate that and want to give a thanks for that for all of us, because it's truly, it's been a good precedent to be set about like being positive and like helping people out, and like, I don't know, fishing's supposed to be fun.
It's supposed to be fun.
It's supposed to be fun, and it's okay to help people out just because, you see that a post like that on Facebook, but like someone else's success does not make you a failure. Like you can cheer other people on. That doesn't make anything that you're doing less. Like, be excited for other people. So, like I said, just a thanks to you as well for all of that, because that is definitely made an impact on my life and my fishing, and I know a lot of other people as well. So, appreciate that for sure.
That makes me happy.
Good.
Well, this is Jason Durham signing off for the Ice Team podcast, and just giving you a reminder to be safe, to be smart, and to be a hero. Take somebody ice fishing.
You bet.
Well, if you've made it this far in the podcast, you've probably noticed that the audio isn't as crisp and clear as it typically is, and that's because I messed up. I actually hit record on our soundboard and it stopped recording. And you can see at the end of the video where I realized this and stare at the soundboard for what seems like an eternity as my heart sinks to the floor in dismay. But thank you for joining us for the Ice Team podcast. And even though we make mistakes sometimes, we still love giving that valuable information to our listeners.